Guillermo del Toro brings us a scary movie with the long title. Scary Stories to Tell is produced by Guillermo del Toro and directed by Andre Øvredal. He's the filmmaker behind Troll Hunter out of Norway, which I heard was pretty good. And the movie The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Now I hear that's a really, really good movie. I'm going to put that on my watch list, and I might watch it tonight because it's a Friday night. And I heard that one's very, very good. So Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is based on the books by Alvin Schwartz. And I think that one is an anthology, so a series of stories. But Del Toro took some liberties here and incorporated a lot of those stories into one movie, into one story. The setting for the movie is 1968 in a small town named Mill Valley. It's Halloween, and you know it because a radio announcer is talking about the annual event, and while we pan across the city. So I get a similar vibe to Halloween, and I interviewed Guillermo del Toro and the director Andre, and I mentioned that, but they said it had nothing to do with that, and it's just kind of a slice of life. You can watch that interview here. The story revolves around these teens who go out trick-or-treating on Halloween, but they're about to enact some revenge on a bully. That sets off a whole series of events. They end up meeting this kid at the drive-in. His name is Ramon, played by Michael Garza, and he was one of my favorite characters. He's this dark-skinned Latino. So he's kind of a mysterious figure. You don't know what is going on with him, but these teens run into him. He kind of helps them with the bully. And then they eventually end up at this mansion that's supposed to be haunted. So they go in, and the story goes, the family kept their daughter named Sarah locked up in the basement. And here comes the ambulance. Bye. Hope everyone's safe. And where was I? So, of course, they find the basement. And they go into the basement. For what? I don't know. I don't know why people are that curious. Anyway, they end up in the basement, and they're looking around. They get some weird vibes, so they want to leave. And they find her books. The story goes, Sarah was responsible for the disappearance of a few kids. And the story goes that she writes stories, and they come to life. So the young girl, the leader of the group, is a young girl who's very smart, wears glasses, and she's probably the brains behind the gang. Not a gang in the sense of a gang, but the crew. And she finds the book. So she decides to take it with her, unbeknownst to the other kids who are there. And that's trouble. So when she takes it home, she starts to see stories being written on the page. Ink starts to write itself on the pages. And it turns out she uses the victim's worst fears and starts writing stories about how they're going to die. So you can see it being written out as the events are happening. So that's kind of cool. I really like the two unlikely leads in the movie. We have Stella, who wears glasses, is sort of this outcast, very shy. Her mom left her family when she was young, so she's got this insecurity about her. But she knows she wants to be a writer, and you can see that there's potential for this girl. And then the other lead is Ramon, played by Michael Garza. And he's this dark-skinned kid, and he's a bit of a mystery in the beginning, but he's an okay guy because he helps the teens against the bully. But you still don't know what's his story, and you don't know where the story's going to take him because you're not used to seeing somebody who looks like this in a movie, especially a mainstream movie like this. So it was nice to see that they played up the whole mystery with this character. The film is rated PG-13, and I was a little shocked because it is somewhat very frightening, even say for a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old. So I was surprised that it wasn't a rated R. There's no gore, the language, there's no foul language, so it's pretty PG. But I guess I was a little surprised because there are some scary moments where you have to look away. And I think the scares are on the level of like a Poltergeist, the original. So you don't have much gore, which I'm fine with. It's all about the scares. And what's unique about this movie is that usually you have one monster or ghost who's after you, and they take maybe, the scares are in different shapes or not forms, but different different ways of scaring you. In this one, since the killings happen around the people's fears, they die by what they fear the most. So I thought that was very smart and unique way of handling the scares in this movie, because you don't have that one monster or ghost repeatedly doing these jump scares, which is what horror movies tend to do a lot lately. So each monster is different, or each spirit is different. And there were some really cool scenes. There's one scene where the story is being written out and the girl is calling the kid, her friend, not to eat the stew. But he can't hear her loud and clear, so he has no idea what he's talking about. He's all alone in the house. So he starts to eat what he thinks is chicken, and it's a body part. Ugh. And so, of course, you got to look away. It was pretty gross. So that was cool. And then there's another scene where there's this creature that morphs. So basically, he can decapitate himself to get through a small crevice and then put himself together. That was creepy. I forgot what it was called. So there's some very creepy moments. Like I said, it's PG-13, so don't expect R-rated horror. But if you like, old-fashioned scarefest, then this movie hits that mark. But I mean, I enjoyed it. Coming in cold with no knowledge of what this movie was as far as what it was based on, I pretty much enjoyed it. I think the acting was good. I mean, it wasn't a great film. There was some on-the-nose dialogue. Some things didn't have to be said. And, it wasn't perfect, but I thought it was a good scarefest for those casual horror fans. And what they did different here, like I mentioned, the monsters are different. The ghosts, the spirits, whatever you want to call them, because they take different shapes in this movie, are different. But the prolonged suspense was killing me. Usually you can tell the beat, like when it's coming or it's coming soon. But the director, Andre Overdahl, he took his time, and it was annoying me because I was ready to close my eyes or look away, but you didn't know when, because he kept prolonging the suspense. It was like, okay, he's, what's the term? I'm trying to remember. Can't remember the term. But delay. He's trying to delay the scare. And at first it was annoying, but then it was effective because I was clutching my seat thinking, when the hell is it going to come? And so when it does come, it's not in the beat that you expect. So I really, really liked that, and I enjoyed that part, and I think that's what made it the worst, that he extended the anxiety until it actually hit. And I thought that was perfect. So I recommend this movie to casual horror fans. I think it was pretty scary. I can watch most horror films, but I always have to look away in certain scenes. So I did it a few times here. So that's how I always judge horror movies. I'm not a scaredy cat. I just don't want to see gore, or I don't know. This movie, I didn't know what to expect. I went in not knowing it was a PG-13, and I think I caught the trailer just briefly. But I went in just not knowing what this really was about. I knew it was a horror movie, but I didn't know at what level. So if you go in with that attitude, you might enjoy it. But like I said, fans of the books, from what I hear, are not impressed at all. But that's because you go in with a bias. So there you go. There's a few movies releasing this weekend. So if you want to get the skinny on all the other movies coming out this weekend, check out this podcast. I joined the panel this week for Los Angeles Online Film Society to talk about the new releases, and we have different degrees of reactions to the new movies. So go check it out, including this one where we're arguing. It's two and two. We had a disagreement about this film. So go check it out, see what others are saying about Stories to Tell in the Dark, and other new releases.